Hey everybody, today we are going to make chocolate cookies with white chocolate chips. They're about like that big and about like that thick. And they're perfect on the outside and they're gooey on the inside. They're delicious. They're actually even better the next day. But anyways, let me shut up and get to business. All right, so it's a rainy, dreary Sunday and I was like, I just want to get fat. Let me go ahead and get started on my winter body now. Think ahead. It's pretty easy. The key, and I've tried so many different like cookie recipes. The key to a perfect cookie, in my opinion, is using cold butter. Like I said, I'm saving you a bunch of trial and error, but cold butter. So don't let it get to room temperature or anything like that. I use like Great Value brand butter usually, so it really doesn't matter in my opinion. But you do want to cut it up into chunks. And then the other secret is to barely mix it. Like, just incorporate the ingredients, just barely. So, oh, sorry, I should probably tell you how you make it. But yeah, the last secret is to put the dough, once you have it like balled up or whatever, in the fridge for at least 30 minutes. That's a big one too. I had to write this down. So half a cup of butter, which is half a stick. 1 cup of brown sugar packed. Great value. You don't need like big fancy brands, especially if you're just doing it at home. Everything's too expensive anyway. And so everything's so expensive right now that hookers are offering financing. Oh, here's another baking secret. Like, I'm lazy. I don't like doing lots of dishes. So if it calls for like mostly 1 cup, 1.5 cup, 1 3/4 cup, I just use math, and I suck at math. So if I can do it, you can do it. So I'm just gonna use this 1/4 cup. We need a cup, so that's 4 1/4 cups. And if there's extra, I just throw it in. A little extra sugar, never bad. Unless you're diabetic, then maybe not. So there's 1, and make sure you're packing it down. 4, like a sand castle. 1/4 cup of regular sugar. Got my GV, Great Value. And then you're just gonna mix this up till it's like I said, barely incorporated with each other. I'm just gonna sit here and stare at you. Ugh, this is a pain in the butt to see. But all right, so the butter is still like hard and in chunks, but it's just really coated basically in like all these sugars. 2 large eggs. Okay, barely mixed. So then it calls for half a cup of cocoa powder. If you remember what I told you, using math, we know that is 2 1/4 cups. We'll wipe that with like a napkin. So wipe this out with a napkin so that when we scoop other ingredients, there's not gonna be chocolate and everything. To be honest, dry. So then you're gonna do 2 1/4 cups of all-purpose flour. It calls for salt, but I use salted butter. 1.5 teaspoon of baking powder. So I have a 1/2 teaspoon. Again, it's gonna save me. 1.5, so that's half. It calls for 1 teaspoon of baking soda. Mix this again until it just barely combines. And it's a thick batter. And I'm just gonna scrape the sides. I love baking. Baking is like a very therapeutic thing for me, and I always feel like Martha Stewart, minus the prison time. Okay, so yeah, that's it. Like I said, barely mix it. And it's still like all clumpy. Instead of mixing it a whole lot, you're just gonna kind of take this and clump it together. Just kind of like mash it. It calls for 1 3/4 cup. This is 12 ounces, so it's like a 1.5 cups, I guess. I don't really care to put that many in it. Like, this seems like too much to me, and I'm gonna take a couple out just to. That white chocolate is so good. Everything I use is a Great Value brand, just about. But Publix has these buy one get one sometimes, and it's just a really good deal. So make sure those white chocolate chips are spread out really good. The other recipe I have basically says like you can weigh them out on a scale or measure out 3/4 of a cup of dough. That is a ton of dough. And I've done them and it works, but I just personally, and they're still gonna come out big and thick. I like to do 1/2 cup. Measure out 1/2 cup. make it into a ball. See, just a ball. Don't flatten them or anything. And I actually am gonna do 3/4 of a cup for you just to show you how big they are. Just 3/4. Look how big it is. And you can fit about 6 on this. And that's about what it makes if you do the full thing. Mine's gonna make a little bit more because I'm gonna do like one more big one. And then the rest are just gonna be half a cup. 3/4, again, huge. And they don't have to be perfect balls. I almost like them to not be perfect because I like the way they look, like almost like a big cheddar biscuit from Red Lobster, even though they're chocolate. What was I saying? Oh, they're not gonna spread much. So yeah, so between the cold butter and between how thick they are and strong they are, and then also putting them in the fridge for like 30 minutes or the freezer for like at least 30 minutes. I like to do a little longer than that. They're not gonna spread much. So I'm gonna put this in the fridge for at least 30 minutes. Like I said, I'm probably gonna do an hour or longer. And then you put them in the oven at 400 degrees for 10 minutes. And usually I would put this on the middle rack, but I found for me, it works better if you do it on the top rack. The bottoms just don't get as burnt, but it still gets done enough because I don't want a completely like raw cookie dough on the inside. But I like it a little crispy on the outside, but gooey on the inside, but I don't want too gooey. So you may have to make it a few times, see what works for you. Maybe start off, because the thing about cookies is if you do even 14 minutes, they're gonna come out and you're gonna think, oh, there's no way those are done. They're gonna be gooey in the middle. What did I do wrong? Blah, blah, blah. But once you take them out and you sit them on the counter and they like come cool completely to like room temperature, they're gonna be a whole lot less gooey and a whole lot more solid. And then a lot of times by the next day, I almost like making cookies a day ahead of time because the next day they're like perfect. So you'll probably think they're not done, but that's what I mean. Maybe try this recipe the first time at like 10 minutes. If they're too gooey for you, the next time try like 12 minutes. And then if they're still too gooey, try 14 or making smaller balls. Into the fridge, and then when they come out into the oven, 400 degrees, 10 minutes. I might do more like 12 or 15, 14. We'll see. I kind of play it by ear, but there's no way to really know when a cookie's done until it's out and it's set for a while. That's my opinion. I'm not a professional baker, but I do bake a lot. So I'm gonna put this in the fridge and then the oven, and then we'll see what they look like. I'm gonna taste this. I love cookie dough. It's so good. It is pretty good. So I'm gonna get these washed in the meantime and clean everything up. Winter body is on its way. Yes, I may be eating chocolate cookies, but I also am drinking Coke Zero. Okay, now we're gonna put this in the oven at 400 degrees for 10 minutes, maybe a few minutes longer, depending on how you want your cookies. And you may want to put it on the top rack instead of the middle rack. In my experience, it just works out better that way. Time to get them out. I've done about 12 minutes, so we'll see. Look how big they are. It's like little mountains. Anyways, let these cool to like room temperature, otherwise you're gonna think they're way too gooey. And that's pretty much it. And they're also better the next day usually.